addressing inequality in New Zealand.
Mr. Chairman. Dr. Rajin Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's a good place to take off from where my member just left off. Mr. Chairman, we are talking about Clause 3. We're talking about confirming the basic tax rates. And of course, there's a purpose as to why we collect tax, so that we can develop the country, but also address those things that need addressing as a matter of urgency. So it was no accident today, Mr. Chairman, that here, knowing that the Children's Commissioner was going to put out a major report about a significant area, our children and child poverty, and in the midst of that, what did the Minister of Social Welfare do? Announce again, probably the third or fourth time, that there's going to be testing, drug testing of beneficiaries. And if that wasn't a distraction, then I don't know what is. Because that was the only purpose for that. It was already announced, it was an old policy. But the point here, Mr. Chairman, is that we're talking about tax, and we're talking about the need to take tax so that we can address those really important issues that our children, Mr. Chairman, are facing today. And there can be no doubt that our children are suffering. And I do want to confirm what my colleague Megan Wood said, that the government is going backwards. The government is out of touch with the ordinary needs of Kiwis. And certainly, Mr. Chairman, they are out of touch with the needs of our children, particularly children living in poverty. And of course, if you did have a fairer tax system, then, Mr. Chairman, that would not be the case, so that the needs of our children, particularly the most vulnerable, would be addressed quite systematically. So here, in a major area, it's one of the implications of the kind of tax system that the government is confirming tonight, and the tax rates the government is confirming. Mr. Chairman, it's not as if it's all going well, because in order to fund the tax rates and the tax cuts they did give, we all know, the government members can deny it as much as they like, we're having to sell our assets in order to make up for those fiscal holes. But the real sad thing, Mr. Chairman, is what's happening to our children because of what they're doing. And I expected Todd McClay to know a bit more about it. After all, he is the son of a former Children's Commissioner. He ought to know what our children are actually suffering. So what the Expert Advisory Group on Solutions to Child Poverty did say, that it actually is a very, very good report, Mr. McClay, and I commend the member to read that, because this is the A team in New Zealand as experts in this particular area of child poverty. You could not get a more illustrious, well-informed team. Professor Jonathan Boston, Dr. Tracy McIntosh, Dr. Arini, Dr. Fiona Cram, Professor Mark Hennigan, Professor... I beg your pardon, what did the member say?
He said they're all communists.
Well, what would that member know from Marston? You know, what would that member... That member does no justice to his own constituents, because they would want to know that member knows these New Zealand experts. Phil O'Reilly, maybe the member knows that person. Maybe the member does. Professor Richard Bolton, Dr. James... This is an impressive list, and Mr. Chairman, what they have come up with is the most comprehensive plan I have seen that ought to be funded by a proper tax system, which is what this clause is about. And they have put a lot of thought into this. And just, I commend the member read the summary, because that's probably as much as the member might be able to digest at any one point. But here what this group has done, they've put together a comprehensive plan as to how all of the things that need to be addressed aim for that one dot on the horizon called eliminating child poverty in this report. And I say to the members opposite, and that the tax system that this clause is about actually is a system by which the resources are brought together to address this. You see, for children, now is the most important time. And Mr. Chairman, in this House, we talk about the needs of children as if the numbers, if we increase it by 5%, 6%, that's enough. But for children born today, their time here is the most serious time, and they need these services now. So whether it's in housing, Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Rajin Prasad.
whether it's in housing, whether it's in health and education, whether it's in Māori children in poverty, Pacifica children in poverty, community and place-based partnerships, income and employment, implementing actions and monitoring progress, all of these matters are addressed in this particular report, and it is the most comprehensive one, and I do commend particularly the Minister of Social Welfare to actually take that into account. And I say to the Minister in the chair, a taxation system ought to be good enough to support these kinds of activities, because and they have to be in multiple areas. And so far, what the government has done, and the Minister in the chair said, well, the most of the expenses in this area has increased. Well, it hasn't increased enough. I'm sure those like me who received a significant tax cut in the tax cuts the government gave would happily give it away if we could be guaranteed that our children in poverty, our children who are suffering, our children who will cost us multiple billions of dollars in a very short period of time, their needs would be addressed now, and we as a society would be proud to eliminate the child poverty. And the reports are here. The report, these programs that come up with these ideas that the Children's Commissioner's expert group is advising are really very, very sound, Minister, and they're worth listening to. And all of this, it's no point just addressing one thing. It's no point that we'll just do drug testing in a particular area, or we'll do a little bit of punitive social policy in a particular area. Mr. Macleay, it's about comprehensive programs to address the needs of our children. Read the report from the expert panels. This is the problem with members opposite. They don't think, they don't read it, they pick on a small element of party policy, their particular ideology, which is quite caustic, and they don't actually assist our children who ought to be supported through our taxation system. And this is about the taxation system, I say to Louise Upston. That's what I'm talking about. Unless there was, we are confirming in part 1, clause 3, confirming that tax rates, I say to Louise Upston, and it's the tax rates that provide the state with the resources to address the fundamental problems in our society. And unless we do that, we produce the problems of tomorrow. This is why this government has no plan. This is why this government is lost. This is why this government is going backwards. A very small number of people might be feeling better. I'm sure the member opposite is feeling better, but really our society is not. People out there don't have jobs. They're leaving New Zealand in droves. They're going overseas. None of those figures that the goals that the other side set up, the Prime Minister set up in the election campaign, are being met. They are, Mr. Macleay, they are not being met. 50,000 leaving for Australia annually. It's a growth record, the biggest record in 50 years.
That's right.
How can Mr. Macleay be proud of this? How can a 52% increase in unemployment and nearly 50,000 more on benefits? How is that something to be proud of, Mr. Macleay? How can that member say, and how can that party say, that the taxation system is fair? The taxation system we're confirming, the rates we're confirming here today, is what will make this society great. No, it will pick winners and losers. That side wants to pick winners of a small group of people. But this side is interested in all of our people. It's interested in a fair economy. It's interested in equality. We have become a very unequal society, I say to the member from the Wairarapa. We have become that. And unless we have a taxation system that's good enough to meet those needs that our most vulnerable have, then what kind of society are we creating? What are we bequeathing to our children? The member might be happy that 50,000 are leaving, that there are more children in poverty, and the member might be happy with that. Well, this side is not, which is the fundamental difference between this side and that side. This is what we're here to fight for, and to expose at every opportunity the kinds of systems and policies that member and his party comes up with, and what this bill is confirming today. And throughout the bill, there are matters of that kind. We'll talk as we go on and discuss other parts about the flip-flop in the policy of the other side. But this has gone on for long enough. And, you know, how long will that member sit up and put up with this society going backwards, because this side isn't?
John Hayes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the question be now put.
We'll have Sue Moroney.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on the